and welcome to another live video on World Book Night. We're down now at Special Collections and I'm joined here with Erica.
Yeah,
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Erica and I'm the Special Collections librarian here.
And I'm Rebecca Bullards and I'm a lecturer in the English Literature Department.
So to kick off, Erica, could you tell us a little bit about what the Special Collections are and how they're used here?
Of course, so the Special Collections are the collections of rare books, archives, antiquarian maps, everything that's rare and special, and there's a lot of historical material as well. And we hold a lot of material relating to English literature, so we welcome quite a few students and lecturers from the English Literature Department who come here to study our material and for classes as well.
Hopefully you can see on the video here behind us, this is just one of quite many bookshelves that we've got, all with special collections and material that we have down here. So could you explain what you've got in your hand for us?
Yeah, so I've brought along one item just to show you something interesting that we hold here, and it's got a close link to Reading as well. It's an edition of The Ballad of Reading Gaol by Oscar Wilde, and this, let me just open it so you can see what it looks like. And so this was published in 1899. It's the 7th edition of this work.
Wow, that's great that we've got it here. Are they both the same copy?
No, so this is the original 7th edition of The Ballad of Reading Gaol. So it was published, the first edition was published a year before this, and it was very popular, and it ran into lots of editions in a relatively short time. And so this 7th edition is quite special because it's the first time that Oscar Wilde was identified, as you can see here, as the author.
Yes.
So this was published anonymously initially because Oscar Wilde had just gotten out of jail. His reputation was in shreds. He was in exile in France, and so the publisher wasn't sure about putting his name on the title page. And originally it was published under C33, which stands for the third cell block, the third landing. Cell block C, the third landing, the third cell, which is where Oscar Wilde's cell was. And so this edition is the first one where he's actually named on the title page. And then this book, it looks very similar, but it's actually a pirated edition. So it was so popular that an unscrupulous publisher basically stole the text and published his own edition. And it's on slightly lower, if you feel it, it's slightly lower quality paper. And he's sort of tried to keep the original layout, but it looks slightly different.
Could we perhaps compare the two?
Of course, yes.
Can I hold?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Sure. So this is the pirated edition. As you can see there, and as you see, it has Leonard Smithers, who is the actual publisher, so it's not the real person who published it. And then the real 7th edition, which is this one, has Leonard Smithers' full address on the title page. And it also has a note here saying that it's the 7th edition, which is missing from that one.
It's interesting, isn't it, being able to see them and compare the two together. It gives you a real insight into the story behind it as well.
Exactly, yeah.
That's right. I think what Erica's saying about, when she said you can feel the difference, it's a really important aspect of the way in which we study books. And so often what we do these days is digital and lacks that sense of, what a thing feels like and looks like. And one of the things that I very much enjoy about bringing students down to Special Collections is that they literally get their hands on the volumes. Their hands are clean, and they don't wear white gloves like in the films. There's a myth. Yes.
Yeah.
You can do a lot more damage to books with white gloves than without them. But actually, that sense of what a book feels like to hold and touch and to turn the pages gives us some real insights into what the first readers might have experienced when they encountered a text. So we do lots of teaching down here in Special Collections, both for master's level students and for undergraduates, so that they have the opportunity themselves to do this kind of work and to become researchers very, very early on in their careers.
I think often universities will say, we have special collections, but you think, well, how would that affect me when I come here for an undergraduate? But do you bring your students down here?
Yes, I do. So I teach modules on the 18th century novel, and we come down and we look at the holdings of 18th century novels that are down here. In fact, I was down with my students fairly recently, and we were looking at this volume. It's been rebound, but it's by a female novelist. Her name is Jane Barker, and it's the entertaining novels of Mrs. Jane Barker. she's from Wilsthorpe in Northamptonshire, which makes her sound terribly proper. And she is terribly proper, but she was also a political radical. She was a great supporter of the exiled king James II, and so these novels have a kind of political subtext that we have to notice. But one of the lovely things that I found when I was down here is that someone, possibly the printer, has left a little smudged inky fingerprint here in the margin. And actually one of the lovely things that you often find in older books is that they leave all sorts of marks of previous owners. They might have book plates in the or annotations, or all sorts of marks of use and evidence that we can use as researchers to find out about these texts, but that are also fantastic for our students to have a sense that these are real books owned and used by real people, and I think it gives a really rich quality to the way in which we engage with texts.
Yes. You teach on a topic called the business of books. Is that correct? Does that come down here at all?
So we come down here with the business of books is a publishing module, publishing history module that our second years can take, and they come down and they think about the history of publishing from the very earliest days of publishing in the 15th century all the way through to the 21st century, and they think about how production has changed. And fairly recently, talking about very, very early printing, fairly recently, Erica here made an extraordinary discovery about one of the items in our holdings. Do you want to say what that
exactly.
is?
So I found a very early page printed by William Caxton, so England's first printer. One of the very early books that he printed was a manual for Catholic priests telling them what feast days to celebrate on what days, and the book is lost, it no longer survives. There's just a set of pages at the British Library, and that's the only fragment. And so in our collections here at Reading, I discovered another unknown page from that book, which has showed up in one of our collections of various leaves and printing ephemera and things like that.
So how do you, when people say they've discovered something, what do you do to discover it? Do you open a page and it's slotted in between another book? How is it found?
Well, it's a fairly mundane process really of cataloguing and describing items. So a lot of items end up on our desk from our collections. So we often acquire new collections, people donate them to us, or we purchase them, and then someone actually has to go through them and see what each of the individual items are. And so on my desk, there were all loose pages from early books that ended up on my desk, and I was just doing some research trying to identify what books they came from and whether there was anything of interest among them. And so I was basically just doing some research, trying to identify the text, trying to identify the printer, trying to estimate when it was printed, and that's how I discovered the Caxton leaf.
So it's wonderful to think, isn't it, that we're still making discoveries about our own holdings, and people can come, academics and people can come and look at the collections. How if people in other institutions wanted to come and use our collections, how would they do that?
Yeah, our collections are open and accessible to anyone. So all people need to do is go to our reading room, which is based in this building here at the Merle, and they register on the day, bring a piece of identification with them, and then anyone can just request anything that's held here and look at it in the reading room, and that includes students for their coursework or their dissertations, or researchers from other institutions as well.
And lots of our students do their dissertations down here and take advantage of our archival holdings, and it's a fantastic preparation for all sorts of careers, most obviously in archiving and in librarianship, but also to bring an extra dimension to work as teachers or cataloguers, or in all sorts of spheres, or in publishing. So we think it's a really valuable opportunity for students, and we very much encourage them to take advantage of it.
Well, hopefully that's been interesting for you to find out a little bit more about the special collections. If you have any comments or any questions, leave them below and we'll get back to you. And I'll put some links as well about your finds as well, and about some of the courses we teach which come down here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.